Arizona. Do you think the Arizona Cardinals will have a new primary starting quarterback in 2024?
Yeah.
You do?
I do. Yeah. Maybe because I want them to. Because I just
This is the most interesting one to me. I think this is the case for the most interesting one.
When you put them on the list, and I'm like, well, they're drafting 2. So if they fall in love with Caleb Williams or Drake May, you're going to start the clock over, and you're going to pick because, listen, this staff inherited Kyler, right? And Kyler's been hurt. Kyler's played well. I do think that the reason I say yes is like I think Drake May or Caleb Williams would do well there. And I think that there is still a significant trade market for Kyler Murray. And I know you put some of these financials in, and I'll let you get into them, but like that's the reason why I could see them potentially moving on from Kyler. And I'm not saying they will, but I would love for them because they're going to get a lot of trade compensation because Kyler can still play, right? But I would love to see Kyler in a different offense with a lot more weapons. Like put him in a Lamar Jackson offense, put him in Josh Allen's offense, put him in like multiple different offenses. Like I think that's where he would thrive, in my opinion.
They have said the whole time, from the time I was there in the spring or this summer to stuff they've said recently. Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator from Arizona, was on Adam Schefter's podcast, for example. He was saying to Adam, Kyler's handled himself the way you would want a franchise quarterback to handle himself. He's been everything we want him to be since we got here. That has been the company line from the beginning. But I think that is said with the idea being, well, if this works out, great. But if we're in a position to potentially start this thing over, that's also an option. So I think they were probably open to the Kyler Murray path if they didn't pick in the top 2, or he was so good that you think, well, we already have a franchise quarterback. Why do we need to go search for something that could become Kyler Murray? And if they were picking 3, 4, 5, and this wasn't a clean decision, I could understand going that route. But now that they have the number 2 overall pick, if that's how this ends up shaking out, I think it does make sense to just move on, because even if he's been fine, it's not like he's blown you away. I know the supporting cast isn't great. I know it's a new offense. I know he got in there mid-season, but this just feels like an opportunity to turn the page and start over and put yourself on a more realistic timeline based on the rest of your roster. You're not going to be ready to compete for the next couple of years. No. And by the time you are, Kyler's going to be making $60 million against the cap. I just think that it makes sense based on them having the number 2 overall pick for them to turn the page, even if that's not necessarily what they've projected.
Well, yeah, and it also gives Kyler a chance to go somewhere and compete. That, like you said, I agree. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me, the timeline that they're on. So you started over. Maybe in 2 years you filled a really competitive team, and you're a few pieces away from being really competitive. But also, like, you give Kyler some of his better years if he's fully healthy. Like, move on, man. Like, go. Like, and I'm sure they'll probably do right by him if they end up trading him. But this is a really, like, when you put Arizona on there, I was like, why did he put Arizona on there? I'm like, what? And then I was like, I started thinking about it. I'm like, they draft 2. And it's just like there's real potential. Like Caleb Williams, Drake May, in my opinion, right now, just what I've dove into film wise, it's a coin flip. So I think both of them are really good, and both of them can really fit your scheme and your offense. So that's what I'm excited to see. And it's like, honestly, just do right by Kyle. If you trade him, like, don't trade him to some bad team. Like I want to see Kyler.
But this is what becomes interesting. Is it who is he an option for then? These teams that don't seem to have a pathway to a quarterback. The Raiders are a good example. They'll come up as we have this conversation. Are the Raiders in a spot where they say, all right, our team, our defense, we've got some pieces. Our defense has been playing pretty well. We have Devontae Adams. We have Jacoby Myers. We have maybe a little bit of money we want to spend on the offensive line. They're going to have a ton of cap space next year. Las Vegas is. They can easily clear about $75 million in cap space without even blinking.
Yeah.
Kyler's cap hits over the next 3 years are not bad. It's $37 million in 2024. It's $30 million in 2025, and it's $39 million in 2026.
That's good, in my opinion.
That's fine. That's not that high. And that $37 million in 2024, that's all base salary. So if you just wanted to convert that, push some of it out, you could have some really palatable cap hits over the next couple years with Kyler Murray. And this is just a matter of circumstance. For Arizona, they have an easy path to a new answer and a new plan and a cheaper plan. But if you don't have that easy path, Kyler Murray is plenty good at quarterback for you to lean on him in this next era of who you want to be, whether it's Minnesota, Vegas, any of these teams. So I think a lot of this stuff lines up where if they can get a mid-first round pick for Kyler Murray and then pick a quarterback at 2, that just seems like it makes more sense for Arizona, where Kyler, I think, makes tons of sense for teams that are in this no man's land where they're not going to be in a position to draft a potential game-changing prospect.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love the fact that, I mean, this is fun. I've never really done this before where you were like, we're going to look at quarterbacks. I'm like, all right. And then like when it is, then my mind just starts racing. I'm like, well, couldn't Kyler get traded to Washington? What about Kyler in Denver? Like Kyler in Denver with that offense and then that running, which Sean Payton's always been infatuated with running guys, Taysom Hill, for example, but now Kyler's a better quarterback than Taysom, but also a better run. And I'm like, then my head starts spinning. I'm like, Denver could make a lot of sense.
So that's a question of money. Because if they want that, they're going to have to move some money around to make it happen. If they're willing to take some of these hits on the chin and they're willing to take some risk as far as restructuring some of these other contracts that they have, or maybe even restructuring Kyler for the next couple of years. If you're comfortable taking Kyler Murray, who I believe is how old? 26? 27?
26.
So Kyler is 26 years old right now. So if you're comfortable saying, we'll move some of this money, we'll get his base salary in 2024 down to $1 million. So he'll be $7 million against the cap. And then you try to do the same thing in 2025. He has a $20 million roster bonus. So let's say you try to convert that $20 million roster bonus. He's sitting there with a $20 million cap hit in 2025. You can live with that. But that's stuff where you're going to need to move the money around to make it happen. And that's what I'm curious about with Denver. Are they in a spot where they're thinking, we have good enough players elsewhere where we want an option right now that we're willing to have to get creative with the finances for, or do they want to go the cheaper route? That's a question only Sean Payton knows. Based on his history, he has shown plenty willingness to move the money around in order to compete now. So I don't know where they're going to end up shaking out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. But there is a lot, and this is probably what I need to get better at. And this is why you're so good at your job, because I'm like, man, I haven't even started diving into these scenarios with the money and the trade and everything like that. But I mean, that's also because when you put all these teams, and we're going to get through the rest of them, the first thing that I went to, because I was a veteran free agent quarterback that was constantly looking at this situation of where teams fall, who needs people, what team am I going to be on? It's like, the free agent quarterbacks for 2024, like Kirk Cousins, we'll get to Minnesota next. Ryan Tannehill, Jacoby Brissett's out there, Tyrod Taylor, Sam Darnold to me is an interesting name. Like Baker's probably not going anywhere. Gardner Minshew, Jake Browning's been playing well. Joe Flacco, Drew Lock. So there are a lot of draft worthy guys, but that's where my mind goes. And it's probably not going to be in Arizona because you have Kyler, you don't need that. But some of these other teams, there's going to be a decent amount of free agent quarterbacks that have shown they can play, get a chance, man. And that's what's exciting about it.